Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Today we're going to cover this application of simultaneous equations, and after today's section, you should be able to understand the concepts of equilibrium and to determine the point whereby two inequalities intersect. And then under equilibrium, like you should be able, you should know how to determine the price, quantity, market equilibrium, and to interpret the effect it has and the intervention we need to add in, which is the price ceiling and the price floors. Oh, we'll cover taxes next time or on our next session. Yeah. Okay. Starting from the concept of equilibrium. Okay, this is just the point whereby the supply and the products, the supply of demand and the demand of products are equal. Right. In other words, equilibrium is the state whereby the market supply and the demand balance each other. As a result, the price becomes stable in this case. Okay, the reason we study equilibrium, we need to know like the concept of equilibrium is that it creates both the balances in the market and the efficient market. If a market is not equilibrium, then the economy gets pressure and it has to move towards the equilibrium price, meaning there must be restrictions that they should be added into for the economy to reach equilibrium, which is not always possible. And another thing, this usually happens because there is more supply than what is needed in the market. Like there is more supply than the demand, or sometimes when the demand is high compared to the supply needed compared to the supply in the market supply. Then another word for the economic equilibrium, it's called the market equilibrium. So economic equilibrium is also referred to as the market equilibrium. Yeah. And in this case, in our study book, we're using equilibrium in the goods markets. So it's either equilibrium in the goods markets or economic equilibrium on the market equilibrium. It's still the same thing. Okay, as I said again, the market equilibrium. Okay. Oh, by the way, we are doing lesson 2. Yeah. I said the market equilibrium occurs whereby the demand for a product is equal to the supply of the product, meaning they are both balanced. Okay, going back to the definition in the study book, it said when the number of units that consumers demand, which is, okay, we'll use QD for the number of units the consumer demand, and for the number of the supply.
Hello.
Okay, those people on the lobby. I always tell you guys to join using the My Life, because if you don't join using your My Life, you join as a guest. That means you have to stay like in the lobby, and I can't accept you when I'm teaching already, when I'm sharing my screen, because I don't even see you. Okay, as I was saying, when the number of units that the consumers demand is equal to the number of units the producer supply, then we say the market is at equilibrium. And again, the market is at equilibrium whereby the price that the consumer is willing to pay is equal to the price that the producer is willing to accept. Okay. So if we have these two cases, then we say the market is at equilibrium. It's either this one, or both of them.
Ana Rafi Sharapan. Ritile president ya COVID. Right. Luar kan magkunan ako siya, wala na siya sa panal rin.
Okay. Again, we are still under the equilibrium in the goods market. Okay, I said at equilibrium, the market will always have the consumer. Okay, the quantity the consumer demands will always equal to the number of units the producer supplies, and as well as for the price. When the price the consumers are willing to pay is equal to the price the producer is willing to accept, then we'll say the market is at equilibrium. Okay, let's just do one example here. Suppose we are asked to find these two, like the price, the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity, and we are given the demand and supply functions. No. Yeah. Suppose we are asked to find the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity, and we're given the demand and the supply function is, we have the demand is 300 minus 2p, and the supply is minus 200 plus 3 PS. Okay, and we are asked to find the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity. Remember, we said at equilibrium, QD is equal to QS, as in the demand, the quantity demanded is equal to the quantity supplied, and also the price demanded is equal to the price supplied. So we can just use this condition or use this one, right? So since we are given our function, both our function, the demand function and the supply function as the function of P, we can just equate our demand function and solve for P, and then use our P to any of the equations to find the quantity demanded at equilibrium. Okay, said these two are of the function of P. So the best way here is to use this condition, because they are both demand function and they are both the function of P. So if we equate these two or we solve them simultaneously, we will first find P, which is the equilibrium price. Okay, let's equate these two. Say we'll use quantity demanded equals quantity supplied, right? And this gives us 300 minus 2P equals minus 200 plus 3P. Remember, I said if we use this condition, then we can first solve for P. And if we use this condition, we can first solve for Q. Okay. Since we use this condition, you see, we only have one unknown in this equation, which is P in this case. So the next step is to make P the subject of the formula, meaning we have to drop the terms with P in one side and drop the other terms without P on one side. Okay, I will transpose 3P to this side and transpose 300 to that other side. And remember, if you transpose a number to the other side of the equal sign, then the sign changes, right? So if we transpose these two, we'll have 2P minus 3P equals to minus 200 minus 300, right? And if we simplify this further, like we collect the like terms, we drop the like terms, then we'll have minus 5P equals minus 500. But the aim is to solve for P here, and we have minus 5P. That means we need to divide by minus 5P on both sides. And if we do that, this and this will cancel out, and we'll have P equals 100. Okay, this is the price. This is the equilibrium price. And remember, we will also find the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity. Since we have the equilibrium price, we can just substitute this equilibrium price to any equation, to any of the given equation. It's either the demand quantity equation or the supply one. You still get the same answer. And if we substitute that equation to any of the two, we'll find Q is equal to 300 minus 2 times 100, because we have P here. and this will give us 100, right? To check if we'll get the same thing if we substitute this to another equation, PQ equals minus 200 plus 3 times 100, and this still gives us 100. Right, so this means at equilibrium, we'll have PQ is 100. Okay, and another thing, you can also find the equilibrium point by plotting the two functions on the same axis. Like if you plot these two functions on the same axis, then where they meet, that would be your equilibrium point. Yeah. So rather than using simultaneous equation, you can just plot this graph and take that point where they meet as your equilibrium point, your equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. Do we have questions?
No, thanks.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to the equilibrium in the labor markets. Okay, which is 3.12 on our study guide. Okay. The reason we need to study the equilibrium in the labor markets is because if you understand this, then it will help you like in disappearing jobs to recognize the value that like how much skills you transfer in your job, right? And another thing, by knowing the labor market equilibrium, this will help you adapt or like adapt your learning, your qualifications, and your career if the time changes, if there's a major change in job opportunities. Okay, yeah, this occurs whereby the labor market equilibrium only occurs whereby the labor that the firm demands is equal to the labor the workers are like they supply. If, for example, let's say the firm wants to pay people maybe 10 rand per hour, then if the workers they are willing to take that 10 rand per hour, that means we've reached the labor market equilibrium. Yeah. Okay, so the labor market only occurs whereby we have these conditions. Right. So we say whereby the labor the firm is demanding is equal to the labor the workers supply, and again whereby when like the salary the firm is willing to pay is equals, it's balancing with the salary the workers are willing to accept. Yeah, so if we have these two cases, we say the labor market is at equilibrium. Okay, let's do another example. Applying this two or any of it. Which am I going to do this time? Okay, suppose we are asked to find the company's equilibrium point, meaning we are asked to find the number of workers and the wage given to the workers at equilibrium points. Like we need to find how many workers a company should like appoint at what price. Oh, and let me just put it this way, and how much will those workers accept? It does make sense. And suppose we are given the demand and the supply function as use demand is 35 minus 2, and we have the supply function is minus 15 plus 3 ws. And then we said at equilibrium, it's either we have this condition or this one, right? You see, our equations, like our functions, they are both given as a function of W, right? Meaning if we equate these two and solve them simultaneously, then that means we'll solve for the wages at equilibrium, we'll obtain the wages at equilibrium. And if these two were the functions of L, then we would have equated them and we would have obtained L, which is the number of workers at equilibrium. Okay, let's just use the first condition, which is to equate these two, since we are given our function in this form, as in the function of W. This 35 minus 2 equal to minus 15 plus 3. And this gives us, okay, remember the next step here is to group the like terms, collect the like terms in one side. Since the to make the wages the subject of the formula, so you need to collect everything, all the terms with W in one side and all the terms without W on another side. And if you do that, you should get minus 2W minus 3W equals to 35 minus 35 minus 15. And if you simplify this further, you will get minus 5W equal to minus 15. And the aim is to make the wages the subjects of the formula. So it means we need to divide by minus 5 on both sides. And if you do that, these two will cancel out and we'll have W as as in 10. Yes.
Miss Como,
Yes.
here you said -2 -3 is not a +5.
It's -2 -3.
Yes, it's not +5.
No.
Okay.
If it was 2 plus 3, then it would have been +5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Miss
It's
Ngomo,
like you have an overdraft of 2 rand, right? And then from your account you use 3 rand again. So it's you had -2 rand and you used 3 rand, right? So that means you'll have -5.
But in the study guide, they said -1,67 -2,5. It's positive 4,17.
They didn't. Wait, what page is that?
Page 19.
Page 19. It's lesson 2.
Yeah, can I say something?
Yes.
Yeah, she's correct. When we minus is positive. When we minus and add is negative.
Yes, minus.
no, that's when
minus.
that's when you multiply. That's when you multiply minus and minus. In this instance, we're just adding minus and minus. So in that instance, that doesn't work. But when you're multiplying a negative number and a negative number, that's when it becomes a positive.
Yeah, that's true.
Hi, I think in this case, it takes the sign of a bigger number, right? So in the
No.
example,
Oh, yeah. It does take this
it takes the sign of a bigger number. That's why it's negative.
Yeah.
Even on the steady guide, that's why it's positive, because it took the sign of a bigger number. 2.5 is bigger than negative. That's why it took so on that one, it took the sign of a bigger number. So that's why now we have -5. Because it took the sign of a bigger number.
To help is to use a calculator. It will help. If you punch minus and minus, it will still give you minus.
Negative, yeah.
Yes, to give you a minus even on the calculator, because it takes the sign of a bigger number. But if maybe that one was positive, maybe so it would have maybe come out to be positive, because it took the sign of a bigger number. So even on the calculator, it's still gonna give you a -5.
Yeah.
Another thing is the example on the study guide. I think they have missed the step of dividing by the
Negative.
the minus. So that's why you don't see the minuses where it says 4.17 W is equal to 20. But then if you minus a minus, it still becomes a minus. Yes, that's what's happening.
Okay, you see from this step, you can just take I'm not taking 15 to this side and take 2W to that side, right? If I do that, I'll have I have 35, right, in this side, but -15 is in this side, so I'm going to transfer -15 to this side, and if I do that, I will have +15, right?
Yeah.
And if I already have 3W this side, I transfer -2W to that side. If I do that, we'll have 2W, and this means I have 50 is equal to 5W. Okay, if 50 is equal to 5W, I can write this as in 5W equal to 50. It's still the same thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm a little bit lost. Can you repeat again?
I said if I choose to transfer -15 rather than transposing 3W to the side, okay, I have at 35 minus 2W equals minus 15 plus 3W, right?
Mhm.
And then that at first I said I'm going to transpose 3W to this side, and this will change its sign, and I will transpose 35 to this side. And if I do that, I will have minus 2W minus 3W equals to minus 15 minus 35. Now, I'm saying I don't want to transpose 3W to this side, but I want to take 2W to this side and take 15 minus 15 to this side. And if I do that, I will have 35. I transpose 3W to this, I transpose minus 15W to this side. It changes its sign, it's become plus. So we have plus 15 equals 3W. I transpose minus 2W to this side, it changes its sign to plus 2W, right? And this gives me 50 equals 5W. If 50 equals 5W, this means 5W equals 50, right? This is the same thing.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
So chances are they might have did that and skip other steps.
Or
But
just simply
you'll
put,
still get the same answer.
yeah, or simply put, you can work on whichever side you want to, as long as they're equal. It's still going to be the same thing. So, because normally I would work the one that you just did, or putting the W's on the other side where they're positive. So in other words, when you work it out, it still comes out the same. So yeah, I'd say maybe then if you're comfortable with that, because when working with negatives, sometimes it can be a bit tricky. Then transpose so that maybe it's positives on both sides, then it'll be easier to work that way. Maybe that might help.
Yeah, but all we have same answers.
Yes.
Thank you. Let us continue.
I don't even know where we. Okay, we obtain W equals 10, which is our equilibrium wedge, which is so to get the equilibrium number of workers, you can just take this W and substitute back to any of the given equation. And if you do that, you will have right. So at equilibrium, we have wages were 10 and the number of workers was 15. So this means at equilibrium, the company should employ 15 workers at a wage of 10 Rand per hour. You can interpret it that way. Okay, now I said when the market is not at equilibrium, then the economy gets pressure. So that means it needs to like add conditions or restrictions so that it will reach the equilibrium price, the equilibrium markets, and put it that way. And again, if the market is above the equilibrium price, the quantity that means the quantity supplied is greater than the quantity demanded, and that will make the price fail. If that happens, then sometimes we need government to intervene, like through price control. And that would be our next section from here. Okay, so when the government believes that the equilibrium price is too high for consumers to pay, they may establish a price selling below the market's equilibrium. Okay, meaning now it's when the quantity or the price the consumers are willing. Okay, this is when the price does not equals, it doesn't balance with the quantity demanded, right? So if this is the case, we said we might need the government to intervene through price controlling. And if the government believes that the equilibrium price is too high for consumers to pay, then it's established a price selling below the market. And the price selling is the maximum amount a seller can charge for a product or service. Yeah. For example, suppose we, which one am I going to do? Let me do that, the one on the study guide. Suppose we are given the demand and supply functions for any given goods as it's minus 2p and quantity supplied is equal to minus 20 plus 2p. Okay, this is D, this is S. Okay, if we equate these two, like the quantity demanded to the quantity supplied, they will obtain the equilibrium price, right? Okay. Remember here in this section, the quantity, like the price selling, is only a result. It's only results when the price, okay, just the market is not at the equilibrium. So we first need to check whether the market is at equilibrium. Like, does the quantity demanded balances with the quantity supplied in the market, or does the price for any product demanded balances with the price any that's supplied? Yeah. So if, okay, in this case, we are dealing with the price ceiling. So the first thing that we need to do is to find the equilibrium price or quantity and check if it's balances. And here we are given our function, our demand and supply function as a function of the price. So we can just equate these two and find the equilibrium price. And then use the equilibrium price to find the equilibrium quantity. Okay, and if we do that, and we equate these two, minus 2p, plus minus 20 plus 2p, we will get minus 2p equals minus 20 minus 200 minus 4p equals minus 220. But we want P, not minus 4P. So we can just divide with minus 4 on both sides. So that will be left with P, which is the equilibrium price in this case. And I said after obtaining the equilibrium price, we can just use that equilibrium price to find the equilibrium quantity. In this case, you can do that by substituting that price to any of these two given functions. Okay, and if we do that, if we substitute that there, we will get minus 20 plus 2 times 55. This will give us 90. Okay, so these two are the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity. Okay, now suppose again we have this case whereby the government believes that this equilibrium price is too high for consumers to pay, and then it then intervened by what? By creating an equilibrium price. By creating the price selling, which is the value that is below the equilibrium price. Because the equilibrium price here is 55. Suppose that the government says, now you can't charge your product. You can't demand 55 rand from your product. You can only demand up to maybe 30, 40, but you can't demand more. Meaning that's 40, it's now called the price selling. Okay, suppose we have that case. Say we have our new P as in 40, right? Okay, we need to find the number of quantity that will be demanded or supplied at this price, right? And we have our demand function as 200 minus 2P, right? And we have our supplied function as minus 20 plus 2P. So if we use this selling here, we will get the units we'll get the number of units demanded, and here we'll get the number of supplied if this is our maximum price. Okay, so let me just substitute it here. We have 200 minus 2 times 40. This gives us 60, right? And if we substitute here, we'll have minus 20 plus 2 times 40. And this gives us, it's 60 again. Okay. This means the quantity demanded is higher than the quantity supplied at this price. Because remember, we have at equilibrium, the quantity demanded or supplied, it's 90. But now the price was reduced, like the price selling was introduced, So, and the price, the equilibrium price was reduced to 40 Rand from 55 Rand. And if this is the case, that means our quantity demanded is now 60, which is less than 90. Yes.
Sorry, Ms. Ngomo.
Yes.
Can I ask you a quick question? Can you explain to me how you got that 60 on quantity demand? Because it's either my calculation is wrong, because if I say 200 minus 2 over 40, technically speaking, that'll be 200 minus 80.
Oh, yeah, this is
Yes.
oh, this is 80. So this is 120.
Yes.
Which is quantity demanded. Oh, yeah. This means the quantity demanded here is higher than the quantity at equilibrium. And this is correct. Yeah, the quantity demanded is higher than the supplied quantity because the quantity at equilibrium is 90, and now the one that is demanded at this price, it's 120. But then it does make sense because of this relation. Because if we reduce a price of any quantity, then that means we'll have more buyers, that your products would be in demand. Yeah, it does make sense if it's like this. Okay, but then we need to calculate the shortage. Okay, we said the quantity demanded is now 120. But the quantity supplied, it's 60, right? That means we will have a shortage of 60 units, because in the markets we only have this. We'll only have this if the price is reduced to this. But now we have more buyers, which is 120. Okay, initially they were 90. So this means if we only have this at this price, we'll have a shortage of this one demanded minus the one that is supplied, which is 60 in this case. And this, you say, it creates an opportunity for someone to go buy this with 60 Rand. Okay, this with 40 Rand. The ones that are needed, the ones that are demanded, with 40 Rand, and go on the black market and sell them with more money to make extra profits. Okay, but now we need to calculate the price the consumers are willing to pay for these 60 units, if these are available in the market. Because, okay, we said we are short with 60 units in the market. Then the next step is to calculate the price the consumers are willing to pay if these 60 units that we are short of is produced into the market. Okay. And we said the price demanded is, okay, we use this function. We have that as the demand function. Yes.
I wanted to ask, 120 minus 60, where do we get the 60 from?
Okay, yeah, it's this 60. That's this one, the one that we obtained from the supplied function.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I said, since we need 60 more units, we are short of 60 more units in the market, then, and we said the consumers they are not willing to pay rand, because that would be a loss to them. So the next step is to calculate how much are they willing to pay if these 60 units are produced. So this means you need to go back to your demand function, which is D equals 200 minus 2P, right? And we said the quantity is 60. It's either you first solve, it's either you first make P the subject of the formula, and then you substitute 60, or you substitute 60 and then you solve for P. And okay, but now I prefer to solve for P first, right? Like to make this equation a function of Q. And if I do that, okay, let me just transpose this part to this side and then this part to this side, right? And that will give me 2P equals 200 minus Q demanded. And if I divide by 2 on both sides, I will have P equals 100 minus 0.5 Q, right? And we said we want to know how much the consumers are willing to pay if 60 units are now available in the market. So the next step is to substitute your 60 here on your quantity.
Sorry.
Yes?
Where does 0.5 comes from?
Comes from 1/2.
Oh.
We have 200 divided by 2 minus 1 divided by 2. 1 divided by 2 is at 0.5.
Okay.
Okay, we said it's 60, right? So this means we have 100 minus 0.5 times 60. Okay, this is 100 minus 30, which is 70. So this means the consumers are willing to pay 70 rand if these quantities, if 60 units is available in the market. Okay. So that means they are willing to increase the price.
Sorry, ma'am.
Okay. Yes.
Do you mind substituting the your formula where it says 200 minus 2P? Just go on top a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one. Can you substitute with a 60? Just want to see how much you're gonna get, because I got 80.
Okay.
Or maybe I'm lost.
We have P equals, we have Q equals 200 minus 2P, right? And we said we substitute 60, right? If we do that, we'll have 200 minus 2P. Let me say I transpose 200 to this. Okay, I transpose 200 to this side. I will have 60 minus 200 equals minus 2p, right? And 60 minus this, it's minus 140, right? Equals minus 2p. But I don't want minus 2p, I want p. So I divide with minus 2 on both sides to get 70. Is it fine?
Yes, thank you.
I think this one is a little bit easier than that one. The other one was confusing, more especially on the half. One divided by 2. I was a little bit confused.
Okay, you can use this one. It's still okay. Yeah. Do we have questions before we move to price ceiling? Yes, no?
No questions.
No. I'm fine this side.
Okay. Another thing, the government doesn't like always favors the consumers only. Now, the next section is whereby the government intervenes and introduce the price floors. Okay. Now, when the government believes that the equilibrium price is too low for producers to receive, then it introduces a minimum price, and that minimum price, it's called the price floor. Okay, this price is set to protect the producers, meaning it must be below the equilibrium price. And it always operates above the market's equilibrium price. Okay, say, for example, okay, I'm gonna do the one on the study guide again. Okay, here they said we should consider labor markets with a demand and supply function as, this is our demand function, labor market demand function, 15 minus 1,67, and the labor market supply function is right. Okay. We set here on the price ceiling, it's whereby the government introduces the lower price. That's they believe the producer should accept instead of what they're getting from the market. This is when by the government believes that the producers are losing from the products, like they are not making any profits. So that's when the price floor is introduced. So to calculate the price floor, we first need to know what is the equilibrium price, right? Okay, and we set the equilibrium price is whereby these two, they are equal, right? It's whereby we have these two conditions. Which means you can just use any of the two to find our equilibrium points. But in this case, our functions, our labor market demand and supply functions are given as a function of the wages, right? So this means we can just use this condition to find the wages first, and then use our wages to find the of workers. Yeah. Okay. And I use this condition, right? And if I use this condition, I will have 15 minus 1.67 equals minus 5 plus 2.5. Okay, I will transpose W to this side and 15 to that side. If I do that, I will have minus 1.67 plus, minus again 2.5 equals 2 minus 5 minus 15, which is minus 1.71. No, minus 1.7 equals minus 20, right? And the next step is to divide with minus 1.17 on both sides, because our one W, the wages, the number of wages, the amount, I mean, okay, this is 7. And if you punch this in your calculator, you should get 4.8. And this is the amount, the wages at equilibrium. Then you need to find the other variable, and you can just substitute your wages in any of the given labor market function. Either you substitute that in the demand or on the supply function. Okay, suppose I substitute it on the demand, then I will have equals 15 minus 1.67 times 4.8. And this gives us, to give us 7, right? Okay, it will give us 7. Now, suppose a government makes a law that wages may not be lower than 6 rand. And we said the wages were 4.8, right? Meaning it's 480. Now, the government comes and intervenes and says the wages cannot be lower than 6 rand. Meaning we have to introduce W equals 6. And we need to find like how many employees like how many workers can we be able to hire if the wages are increased to this amount, right? And we said we have, but the labor market demand is 15 minus 1.67 wage. And if we substitute here, we will have as 15 minus 1.67 times 6. which is 4,98. Okay, we can have
Hello, Miss.
what? Yes.
Here you said 15 minus 167 into 4,80. What's the answer?
It's 5.
It's 5.
Where you say 15 minus 1,67 times 4,8?
Yes.
Isn't it 7?
No, I don't see.
I said it's
I
7.
17 or it's 17.
It's 7.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, I thought you calculated and got a different number.
No, I got 6,98. That's it's confusing.
6,984. If you round off this to the nearest integer, you'll get 7.
Oh, I thought you write 17 there.
No, I wrote 7. Please.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, so at this amount of wages, that means the company will only be able to employ 5 workers. Right? But if the salary is increased, I think more employees will be willing to work at that salary. That means more work for them. Yeah. Do we have questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
The 6 that you're substituting with here, where did you get it?
What?
The 6 that you're substituting with here.
Got 4,98, which is 5.
No, you said 15 minus 1,67 into 6.
Yes.
I don't understand, where do you get the 6?
This is the 6. Remember, I said then the government intervened and said we cannot have a wages lower than 6 rand. That's where the 6 comes from.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Right. Then after they said the wages should be 6 rand, we need to find the number of workers we can hire. And then we said we can hire 5 workers. But then again, you can find the number of workers that will be willing to work at that amount, at that like salary, which is 6 rand per hour. If you want to find that, you can substitute that 6 on the supply function, labor market supply function. But if you want to find the number of workers that the company will want to hire, you will substitute that salary on the labor market demand function. Yeah. Okay, let's say we calculate the number of workers that they will be willing to work at the salary. This means we have it is equal to minus 5 plus 2.5 times 6. This gives us 10 workers. And the company is only willing to hire only 5 people. That means the rate of unemployment will rise with 5. Because from these, that the ones who work will only hire 5. Do we have questions? Do we?
Hi, yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I see this example we're doing now is similar to
The one on the
calculating
book.
the price floor. So in other words, could we also term this example as a wage floor?
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
It's 10 workers, no?
Yes. Are you saying something?
Oh, I was asking, is it 10 workers?
Yes, it's 10 workers.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I would like to stop recording.